We love a good second-hand deal on fifth gear, and recently an affordable, booming second-hand EV market has emerged, and our Grace Webb has been taking a look at what's on offer.
EVs have now been around for a few years, so there's some cheaper second-hand ones that can be snapped up.
I've come to an EV specialist in Cheltenham. As well as servicing and repairing EVs, they've also got a healthy selection of used stock. What about a BMW i3? This fairly recent example would set you back £18,000, but earlier 2014 versions can now be acquired for closer to 10.
And if that's still too expensive, how about this 8-year-old Nissan Leaf with 70,000 miles on the clock? Yours for just £7,500.
All very tempting, but before you hand over the credit card, what do you need to look out for?
The good news is, not a lot. Unlike combustion engine cars, EVs have very few moving parts. So there's no cylinders, no complex gearboxes, prop shafts, clutches, cam belts or exhausts.
But simplicity isn't the same as reliability. If you buy a second-hand EV, could some big bills be heading your way? Let's start with the electric motors.
Yes, the motors are fantastically reliable.
Are they likely to last the lifetime of the car?
As long as they're looked after. We've seen Teslas that have been taken on as taxis do over 200,000.
Well, that's encouraging. Now, let's talk about the battery pack, the lifeblood of an EV car. Most of them use bigger versions of the lithium-ion ones that power our mobile phones.
And we all know what happens to these after a few years. They slowly but steadily die, losing the capacity to hold their charge.
Not surprisingly, the batteries in EVs will do the same. However, it's not all doom and gloom.
Battery degradation is quite slow, dropping on average around 10% over 6 years.
And there's even better news, because many manufacturers warrant the batteries for a minimum of 80% capacity for 8 years or 100,000 miles. And why does battery condition matter so much? Because they are easily the most expensive component in an EV.
They cost thousands and thousands of pounds to replace, sometimes well into 5 figures.
Just like the overall cost of an EV, battery prices will come down in time. In fact, since 2010, lithium-ion ones have dropped in price by about 80%. So in the longer term, this should be less of a bother when buying a second-hand model. Right, time for a drive? I'll take the Nissan.
Yeah, I'm impressed with this little Leaf. Even though it's 8 years old, it's still got that electric urge and a nice progressive acceleration. It's actually really relaxing.
So we've talked about the actual metal, but is there anything else to consider when buying a second-hand EV? Well, the specialist components that they use means that insurance is higher.
Work on paying around 20% more than the equivalent petrol or diesel car. Plus, you've got to somehow charge it up. So, assuming you've got a driveway, a proper EV wall box is the answer. Allow £400 to £800 for one of those.
However, buy wisely and it'll start paying you back big time. Your fuel costs will more than halve and your service costs could also plummet by the same amount.